Ethan had lived in hiding for 17 years. 17 years of solitude on the outskirts of the galaxy, where no one knew his name, no one knew his face, and no one cared about his past. He had not chosen this life because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. Once, long ago, he had crossed paths with a being unlike anything humans had ever seen. She was called Lyria, and she belonged to a species of aliens that were not only intelligent but also extremely powerful. Their technology was far beyond human understanding, and their vision of the galaxy was so different that even the simplest human choices seemed insignificant to them. When they first met, Ethan had been a soldier in the interstellar war that shook the outer colonies. Humans had fought to defend their settlements against hostile alien factions, but amidst the chaos of war, Lyria had appeared. She did not belong to the enemy. She was a scout, a messenger, and perhaps something more. Though Ethan had never been able to understand her motives completely, her eyes glowed faintly. Her skin shimmered with colors that shifted in the light, and her voice carried a tone that could make even the most hardened soldier feel exposed and vulnerable. She had come seeking something, and Ethan, without fully understanding why, had helped her. The decision had cost him dearly. It had forced him to choose between loyalty to his human comrades and the instinct to survive. Lyria had trusted him in a way that no human had, and in return Ethan had felt fear, confusion, and an unexplainable sense of responsibility. The war ended, and while humans celebrated victory, Ethan vanished. He left the colonies, disappeared into uncharted systems, and carved a life for himself among the stars where no one would ever find him. For years, he had moved from one abandoned settlement to another, learning to live off the land and the limited technology he could find. On this distant planet, he had built a small shelter from the wreckage of old ships, blending it seamlessly into the rocky cliffs and dense forests. He had learned the habits of local wildlife, discovered where to find clean water, and even managed to cultivate a small garden that provided him with edible plants. It was a simple life, but it was safe. It was quiet, and it was exactly what he wanted, or at least what he told himself he wanted. Yet every night when the twin moons rose over the horizon, Ethan felt the weight of the past pressing down on him. Memories of Lyria, her piercing gaze and her quiet voice haunted him. He would remember the way she had spoken of the universe as if it were a puzzle meant only for the strongest minds to solve. He would remember the urgency in her eyes when she had asked for his help, and the moment he had made the choice to flee. He had run, and now he had hidden for nearly 2 decades. Ethan was not idle in his hiding. He had refined his survival skills, learned to repair old machinery, and even mastered small weapon systems, though he never wanted to use them. He studied the stars at night, charting the patterns of passing ships and trying to predict the movements of travelers who might stumble upon his secluded home. He had become an expert in staying invisible. People like him, people who had reasons to vanish, did not get second chances. One mistake, one slip, and everything would be over. It was a crisp morning when everything changed. The sky was painted with pale colors as the sun struggled to rise over the jagged peaks. Ethan was tending to his garden, inspecting the small pods of vegetables he had nurtured for months, when a distant shimmer caught his eye. At first, he thought it was a trick of the sunlight, bouncing off the metal of a distant cliff. But then the shimmer moved. It was too precise, too deliberate to be a natural reflection. His heart tightened and his instincts screamed a warning that he could not ignore. Ethan moved to a higher vantage point and scanned the horizon. There it was, a ship unlike any human design. Sleek, elongated, and almost liquid in appearance, it hovered silently, defying gravity. The surface of the ship shimmered with colors that shifted like a living thing. He froze. The ship was familiar. Too familiar. It was Lyria's ship, and he knew without a doubt that she was inside. Fear gripped him, not because he doubted her intentions, but because he knew what this meant. She had found him. 17 years of hiding, 17 years of careful planning, and she had still located him. Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. Was she here to persuade him, to demand his help, or to punish him for fleeing? He did not know, and that uncertainty was worse than any physical threat. He considered fleeing again, but his body refused to move. His life was built here, and running meant abandoning everything he had created. He could hear the hum of the ship now, faint but persistent like a pulse vibrating through the ground. Ethan knew that within moments Lyria would step out, and when she did, he would have to face the choices he had made years ago. The minutes stretched into an eternity before the ship finally descended. A ramp extended, glowing softly, and from it emerged Lyria. She was just as he remembered. Her eyes shone with an intensity that seemed to pierce through time, and her presence was commanding yet calm. She moved with a grace that made the rocky terrain beneath her feet seem ordinary. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He had imagined this moment countless times in his mind, but seeing her in reality was different. It was overwhelming. Lyria looked at him, and for a moment neither spoke. The wind rustled through the sparse trees, carrying with it the scent of the soil and the faint tang of metal from his machinery. She studied him carefully, as if measuring the changes time had brought, and Ethan felt a strange mix of guilt and awe. He wanted to speak, to ask why she had come after all these years, but the words would not come. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft, but it carried an unmistakable authority. "Ethan," she said, "it is time." The simplicity of the statement unsettled him. Time for what? He had survived all this while, hidden from the universe and from her. Now she was here, and her presence made it impossible to ignore the life he had built. The life he had convinced himself was enough. Ethan's mind raced through all the scenarios he had prepared for over the years. He had thought of traps, escape routes, and ways to negotiate from a position of strength. But none of that mattered. Lyria's appearance had shattered the illusion of safety he had maintained. She had arrived not as a threat, but as a reminder of the past he could no longer run from. 17 years, he finally managed to say, his voice rough from disuse. "And you found me?" Lyria nodded, her expression unreadable. "I always will," she replied. Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of years of knowledge and of expectation. She was not here for a casual reunion. She had a purpose, and he knew it. Ethan took a step back, his mind racing. Could he trust her? Could he trust himself after all this time? He had survived wars, hostile planets, and isolation. But facing her was different. She represented something beyond survival, something he had long buried: responsibility, loyalty, and the human instinct to rise to challenges that seemed impossible. "I need to know why," he said finally, his voice steadier now. "Why come here after all this time?" Lyria's eyes softened slightly, but the intensity remained. "Because the galaxy is changing," she said. "There are forces that even your people cannot face alone. I need your help, Ethan, and you need to stop hiding." Her words struck him with a strange force. Help the galaxy. Stop hiding. They were commands wrapped in concern, and yet they stirred something inside him that he thought had died long ago. Ethan realized that his life in isolation, as comfortable as it had been a life of avoidance. He had run from responsibility, from danger, and from the very qualities that made him human: courage, ingenuity, and the will to act when it mattered most. For the first time in years, Ethan felt the stirring of determination. He knew he could not stay hidden any longer. Lyria had found him because he was needed. The galaxy was larger than his fears, and the challenges ahead would demand everything he had learned in hiding, and much more. Ethan nodded, slowly, as if accepting a truth that had been waiting for him all these years. "All right," he said, his voice firm. "I will listen." Lyria's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. She extended her hand toward him, a gesture that was both invitation and challenge. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward, leaving behind the life he had built, the fear that had bound him, and the years of solitude. He was stepping into the unknown, but for the first time in 17 years he felt alive. Together they looked toward the horizon, where stars stretched endlessly across the sky. Ethan knew that his life of hiding was over. A new chapter was beginning, and it would demand the very best of him. Humanity had always faced impossible odds, and now, standing at the edge of the galaxy with an alien ally, he would prove that once again. The journey was just beginning. Ethan had never thought he would see Lyria again. After 17 years of hiding, after endless nights of imagining the moment and preparing to face it, she was standing in front of him, real and undeniable. The wind swept through the trees and the tall grass around his shelter, and the hum of her ship lingered in the air like a promise. Her presence made the forest feel alive, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Lyria studied Ethan carefully, her glowing eyes observing the lines of his face, the strength in his hands, and the quiet confidence he had built over the years. "You have changed," she said, her voice calm but filled with meaning. "You are no longer the man who ran. You are stronger, wiser, and ready. Ethan felt a mix of pride and uncertainty. He had survived, yes, but this was not survival in the sense he had known. Survival had been hiding, avoiding responsibility, and keeping himself invisible. Strength, he realized, was not in hiding, but in facing what was difficult and unknown. Why now, he asked. Why come after 17 years? Why me? Lyria stepped closer, and the light from her ship reflected in her eyes. Because the galaxy is shifting. Forces are gathering that threaten every human colony, every life that seeks peace. You have skills that cannot be taught, intuition that cannot be calculated, and courage that others lack. I cannot do this without you. Ethan wanted to protest. He had left the colonies because he was afraid, because he knew he could not trust himself to make the right decisions in war or in politics. But he also knew that running had not made the galaxy safer. It had only kept him alive. Now survival alone would not be enough. Humans had always faced impossible odds, and he was about to be reminded why. He nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? He asked. Lyria smiled faintly, and the shimmer of her skin seemed to ripple like water in the morning sun. First, she said, we need to leave this place. It is no longer safe. Your hiding spot may have kept you invisible to humans, but others are aware. Enemies are moving, and they will not stop until they find you. Ethan's heart raced. Even in isolation, he had known danger could find him. But the idea that the galaxy itself was hunting him, that his life was part of a larger plan, made the risk feel real in a way that hiding never had. He gathered what supplies he could carry: food, water, tools, and a few pieces of equipment he had scavenged over the years. Every item had a purpose, every movement had been practiced countless times. Still, as he prepared to leave, he realized how much he had relied on solitude to survive. Now he would have to trust someone else. Trust was not easy for Ethan. He had learned to depend on no one, to expect betrayal or failure, and to make choices that kept him alive above all else. But Lyria was different. She had proven herself in the past, and she carried the weight of truth in every gesture, every word. He felt the old fear begin to fade, replaced by a cautious determination. Humanity had always survived not because of strength alone, but because of intelligence, courage, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. Lyria's ship was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with a living light, reflecting the stars above and the terrain below. The ramp extended silently, and Ethan stepped inside, feeling the hum of advanced technology beneath his feet. The interior was vast, filled with devices he could not name but understood were meant to observe, analyze, and protect. Lyria moved through the corridors with grace, and Ethan followed, silently studying the patterns of light and sound. Once inside, Lyria led him to a chamber where a large display hovered in the air, showing star systems, colonies, and ships moving through space. She pointed to several areas highlighted in red. These are the colonies under threat, she explained. There are factions that seek to dominate the humans and other species. They are organized, intelligent, and ruthless. If we do not act, entire worlds will fall. Ethan stared at the holograms, recognizing the names of colonies he had visited as a soldier, places he had fought to protect. The thought of them being destroyed filled him with a mix of fear and resolve. Humans had always faced impossible odds, yet they had endured. Now he would be part of that fight again, not as a soldier in a war he barely understood, but as a human using his instincts, ingenuity, and courage to make a difference. What is the plan? He asked. Lyria turned, her expression serious but patient. The plan begins with observation. We need to understand the enemies, their movements, and their weaknesses. You have experience in human tactics and survival. Your knowledge of unpredictable strategies will help us anticipate their actions. We will need to work together, combining your skills and human intuition with my species' technology. Ethan nodded, his mind already analyzing possibilities, considering the paths they could take, the decisions they would have to make. Humans were not the fastest, not the strongest, and not the most advanced, but they were adaptable. They could think in ways that others could not, find solutions where logic failed, and endure where technology alone would falter. Lyria's species had power, but humans had something different. They had heart. Days passed as they traveled through space. Ethan watched stars and planets pass by, marveling at the beauty and danger of the galaxy. Lyria shared information about the factions threatening humanity, explaining how they had conquered weaker species and expanded their influence. She spoke of alliances and betrayals, of diplomacy and deception, and Ethan listened, absorbing every detail. His mind worked constantly, searching for weaknesses, predicting moves, and planning counteractions. One night, as they approached a human colony under threat, Ethan asked a question that had been on his mind for years. "Why me?" he said quietly. "Why not someone else? There are thousands of human soldiers, leaders, strategists. Why come after me?" Lyria's eyes softened. "Because you are human," she replied simply. "You see the world differently. You adapt, improvise, and make decisions that are unexpected. Others follow rules, but you create them. That is why I found you and why I need you now. Humanity has a quality that cannot be replicated. Courage, creativity, and determination. They are unpredictable and they matter more than you realize." Ethan felt a sense of pride, tempered with humility. He had survived by hiding, by avoiding danger, and by thinking ahead. But he had never considered that the same qualities that kept him alive could be the key to saving others. He realized that humans were special not because they were perfect, but because they could rise above limitations, face fear, and act when it mattered most. The colony they approached was small, surrounded by rocky cliffs and dense forests. Sensors indicated enemy ships in the nearby system. Scouting and preparing for an attack, Lyria and Ethan observed silently, noting patrol routes, weaknesses in defenses, and opportunities for intervention. Ethan suggested adjustments that Lyria had not considered, movements that were unpredictable and clever. She smiled, acknowledging that human intuition was often the missing element in strategic planning. As night fell, Ethan and Lyria prepared for the first phase of action. They would need to coordinate with the colony's leaders, reinforce defenses, and anticipate enemy movements. Ethan felt the familiar tension of responsibility, but this time it was different. He was not running. He was not hiding. He was standing at the edge of danger, ready to act, and he knew that humanity's resilience and adaptability could make the difference. When the first signals of enemy ships appeared on the horizon, Ethan felt a surge of determination. He had spent 17 years in hiding, preparing for this moment in ways he had not understood at the time. Now the galaxy was calling him to action, and he would answer. Humans had always faced impossible odds, and now he would prove that their strength was more than physical power or advanced technology. It was their heart, their mind, and their courage that made them a force worth defending. The colony lights flickered in the distance, small and fragile, yet full of life. Ethan and Lyria descended, ready to join the humans who had not yet realized the danger approaching. For the first time in 17 years, Ethan felt alive in a way he had forgotten. Fear was still present, but it was tempered by purpose. Survival alone was no longer enough. Now, he would fight, using the qualities that made humans remarkable: creativity, courage, and an unbreakable will to protect others. The journey had only begun, but Ethan knew one truth with certainty. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and threats, but humans had something no other species could replicate. They had hope, ingenuity, and the ability to rise against impossible odds. Standing beside Lyria, Ethan prepared to face whatever came next, ready to prove that even in the darkest reaches of space, humanity could shine. Ethan and Lyria had left the safety of the remote planet behind. The journey through space was quiet at first, filled with anticipation and unspoken tension. Ethan studied the controls of Lyria's ship, learning quickly. It was not just advanced technology. It seemed almost alive, responding to thought and subtle movements. He marveled at how different it was from human designs. Lyria moved beside him, calm and precise, guiding him without words as they traveled deeper into the galaxy. The first stop was a human colony named Terran's Reach, a settlement built on a rocky moon with cliffs and caves surrounding the central dome. The colony had been warned of enemy activity nearby, but the people did not know how close the threat truly was. As they approached, Ethan noticed the anxiety in the colony's lights and the small ships preparing for patrols. Humans were resourceful, but fear had begun to take hold. Ethan and Lyria descended slowly, landing in a hidden area outside the main settlement. The air was thin but breathable, and the scent of metal and earth mixed in the cool wind. Ethan felt the familiar tension of observation, assessing the terrain, noting possible ambush points, and imagining escape routes. Even after 17 years in hiding, his instincts remained sharp. Humans had always survived by anticipating danger and acting quickly. That skill had not left him. They entered the colony cautiously, Lyria invisible to most sensors, blending seamlessly with the environment. Ethan approached the colony leaders, explaining that he had knowledge of the enemy and strategies to protect them. At first, the leaders were skeptical. A man who had been missing for 17 years suddenly appeared, accompanied by an alien. Trust was not easily given, especially in times of fear. Ethan spoke with calm authority. He explained the patterns of enemy movements he had observed from space and shared insights into tactics that would not be expected. Humans were capable of improvisation, and that unpredictability would be their advantage. The leaders began to listen. Slowly, their skepticism turned into cautious hope. Lyria added support, providing technical data and strategic insights. Together they demonstrated that combining human intuition with advanced alien technology could create an effective defense. While planning continued, Ethan noticed a group of younger colonists training with makeshift weapons. Their movements were precise but lacked experience. He stepped forward, showing them techniques for defense that emphasized strategy and observation rather than brute force. Humans had always excelled in thinking creatively when faced with challenges, and he encouraged them to trust their instincts. Lyria observed silently, impressed with how Ethan guided the humans without intimidating them. Over the next few days, Ethan and Lyria worked tirelessly. They surveyed the terrain, reinforced weak points, and devised contingency plans. The colonists began to feel a sense of purpose and confidence, inspired by Ethan's leadership and Lyria's guidance. Even small actions mattered. Humans were adaptable, and their willingness to learn quickly became apparent. Lyria recognized that these qualities were impossible to replicate in her species. Humans were not predictable, and that made them powerful allies. Conflict arose when some colonists questioned whether Ethan could truly be trusted. He had disappeared for 17 years, and some believed his motives might not be pure. Lyria stepped forward, explaining the risks and emphasizing the importance of working together. Ethan spoke honestly about his past, admitting his fears and mistakes, showing vulnerability that strengthened trust rather than weakening it. Humans valued honesty, and his words resonated. Gradually, the colony began to rally around him, recognizing that survival required unity and courage. Ethan also noticed signs of enemy surveillance near the colony. Small drones hidden among the rocks had been observing their movements. He devised a plan to lure the drones into a trap, using human creativity and improvisation rather than relying solely on Lyria's technology. The plan worked. The drones were captured, and the colonists celebrated the success. It was a small victory, but it showed that humans could combine intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness to achieve results that no advanced technology alone could guarantee. As preparations continued, Ethan and Lyria discussed their next steps. They could not stay in one colony for long. The enemy forces were growing bolder, and it was only a matter of time before larger attacks would occur. They decided to travel to another colony, Valara Station, which was located on a planet with dense forests and rivers. The journey would be dangerous, but humans had always thrived in challenges. Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer hiding. He was leading, teaching, and proving that humans could rise above fear. During the journey to Valara Station, Ethan reflected on the alliance forming between humans and Lyria's species. The bond was tentative but powerful. Humans were unpredictable and resilient, while Lyria's species brought knowledge, technology, and perspective. Together, they could create strategies that no enemy could anticipate. He realized that the true strength of humanity lay not only in survival, but in the ability to adapt, inspire, and act decisively when circumstances demanded it. Arriving at Valara Station, Ethan immediately noticed the urgency among the colonists. Enemy ships had been spotted in the system, and the people were anxious. Ethan and Lyria assessed the defenses and began organizing teams to reinforce weak points. The colonists were ready to follow guidance, but they needed leadership. Ethan provided it, demonstrating that human ingenuity combined with courage could make even untrained people effective in crisis. Ethan trained small groups, teaching them to observe, anticipate, and improvise. He encouraged them to use their surroundings creatively, turning ordinary terrain into strategic advantages. Lyria supplied technical support, enhancing communication, sensors, and defenses. Together, they created a network of human initiative and alien technology. The combination was unexpected but effective. Humans had always found ways to succeed against stronger opponents through intelligence and adaptability. Tensions rose as the first enemy scouts arrived. Small ships moved silently through the atmosphere, testing the colony's defenses. Ethan and Lyria watched, analyzing their patterns and preparing the colonists for a rapid response. When the scouts attempted to land, they were met with a coordinated countermeasure, combining human tactics and alien technology. The result was a decisive success, and the colonists cheered. Ethan smiled, recognizing the first true victory of the Alliance. During a quiet moment after the attack, Ethan spoke with Lyria. "We are doing more than defending colonies," he said. "We are showing humans what they can do when they believe in themselves. This is bigger than survival. This is proving that we can rise against any challenge." Lyria nodded. "Yes, Ethan. You are teaching them something no weapon can. Courage, resourcefulness, and unity are the strengths that will carry humanity forward. They will need these qualities, because the threats ahead are greater than anything we have faced so far." Ethan felt a surge of determination. The journey had begun with fear and uncertainty, but now purpose guided every action. Humans had always faced impossible odds, and now they were rising again. Small victories, lessons in adaptability, and the courage to face danger were shaping a new generation of defenders. Humanity's strength was not in advanced weapons alone, but in the mind, heart, and determination to act when others hesitated. As they prepared to leave Valara Station for the next colony, Ethan reflected on the alliance they had built. Humans were capable of more than they often realized. They could inspire, adapt, and act with creativity that no advanced species could predict. Lyria's presence had been essential, but the true power lay in the human spirit. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but humans had something unique. They had hope, intelligence, and courage, and these qualities were proving themselves more effective than any weapon. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, battles, and impossible choices. But Ethan knew that humans were not meant to hide forever. They were meant to rise, to adapt, and to inspire. The colonies they saved, the people they trained, and the lessons they imparted were shaping a future that no enemy could easily destroy. Ethan stood at the observation deck of Lyria's ship, watching the stars pass by. The galaxy was full of danger, yet it was also full of possibilities. Humans had always faced the unknown and had always found a way to survive and thrive. Now, standing with Lyria, he was ready to prove that their greatest qualities, courage, intelligence, and resilience, could change the course of events in the galaxy. For the first time in 17 years, Ethan felt truly alive. He was no longer hiding. He was leading, teaching, and defending, and he knew that humans, when united and guided by courage and creativity, could face any challenge the galaxy threw at them. The alliance had begun. The colonies were ready. The enemy would learn that humans were not easily defeated, and Ethan was determined to ensure that the galaxy would never forget it. The galaxy was quiet only for a moment before chaos erupted. Ethan and Lyria had barely left Valara Station when sensors detected the enemy fleet approaching. The ships were numerous, sleek, and aggressive, moving with precision as if they had predicted every human maneuver. Ethan studied the display, noting formations, possible attack routes, and weaknesses. Humans were not the fastest, not the most powerful, and not the most advanced, but they had something the enemy could not predict: ingenuity. Lyria's eyes glowed softly as she watched Ethan work. "You are already seeing possibilities that my calculations did not suggest," she said. "Humans are unpredictable. That is their strength." Ethan nodded, feeling the familiar surge of determination. He had trained the colonists, prepared defenses, and tested strategies. Now it was time to act. "We need to divide their attention," he said. "Small teams will create diversions, and we will strike where they least expect it. We cannot rely on firepower alone. We need creativity, speed, and courage." The first attack came at dawn. Enemy ships descended toward the colony in formations, firing energy pulses that lit up the sky. The humans were ready, though their weapons were basic compared to the enemy's advanced technology. Ethan's teams moved strategically, using terrain, camouflage, and traps to outmaneuver the invaders. Small explosions and bursts of light created confusion, and the enemy faltered. Ethan led a group to flank the main enemy line. Using a combination of makeshift devices and his knowledge of human tactics, they disabled several ships. The colonists watched in awe as ordinary humans performed extraordinary feats. Lyria coordinated from the ship above, guiding energy shields, communications, and tactical maneuvers. The humans and aliens together formed a force neither side could ignore. Despite the chaos, Ethan noticed the enemy adapting. They were intelligent, learning quickly from mistakes and adjusting their strategies. He realized that this would be more than a simple skirmish. It was a test of creativity, courage, and adaptability. Humans had survived for centuries not because of strength alone, but because they could think differently. He had to ensure that everyone trusted their instincts, took risks when necessary, and believed in their abilities. The battle escalated as the enemy deployed ground forces to the colony. Lyria and Ethan guided teams to intercept them. Humans used narrow paths, caves, and forests to their advantage, setting traps and ambushes that the enemy did not expect. Ethan moved with precision, anticipating movements, predicting attacks, and coordinating responses. Lyria watched in admiration, realizing that human ingenuity was more powerful than technology when combined with courage. One team faced a critical moment when enemy forces cornered them near a cliff. Ethan quickly devised a plan. Using ropes, pulleys, and small explosive charges, they created a distraction that sent the enemy retreating. The team escaped unharmed, and the colonists cheered. Ethan reminded them that human creativity could turn even the most dangerous situation into an advantage. Courage and intelligence together could overcome overwhelming odds. As the battle continued, Lyria's species contributed advanced technology, but it was Ethan's leadership and human unpredictability that made the difference. He led squads through forests, caves, and cliffside paths, turning the terrain into a strategic advantage. Humans moved swiftly using clever tactics, improvisation, and teamwork. Even when the enemy adapted, humans found new solutions, demonstrating resilience and adaptability that surprised even Lyria. Hours passed, and the enemy forces began to falter. They had underestimated humans, believing that technology alone would ensure victory. They had not counted on creativity, courage, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. Ethan's strategies combined with human determination turned the tide. Small victories accumulated, and the enemy's morale began to waver. During a critical moment, Ethan and Lyria discovered the command ship of the enemy fleet. It was heavily protected, but they realized that taking it down would disrupt the entire operation. Ethan devised a risky plan. Using the skills of humans trained over days and Lyria's advanced technology, they infiltrated the enemy's defenses. Humans moved in unexpected ways, using terrain and improvisation to avoid traps and neutralize guards. Lyria provided guidance and protective shields, allowing them to reach the command center. Inside the command ship, Ethan faced the enemy leader, a figure of authority and intimidation. The leader was confident, relying on technology, strength, and fear. Ethan remained calm, using observation, strategy, and unpredictability to counter the leader's moves. He anticipated attacks, created diversions, and exploited weaknesses that technology alone could not hide. The confrontation was intense, but Ethan's human qualities, courage, intelligence, and adaptability, prevailed. The enemy leader was defeated, and the command ship disabled. Outside, the remaining enemy ships lost coordination. Without leadership, they faltered and retreated. The colony was safe thanks to the combined efforts of humans and Lyria's guidance. Ethan looked at the horizon, seeing the fleet disappearing into the distance. Humans had faced overwhelming odds, and yet they had prevailed. The victory was not just in firepower, but in ingenuity, teamwork, and determination. The colonists celebrated their survival and the effectiveness of the human-led strategies. They had witnessed firsthand how courage, creativity, and intelligence could change the outcome of seemingly impossible battles. Lyria praised Ethan, recognizing that humans' greatest strength was not technology but the ability to adapt, inspire, and act decisively when it mattered most. As the dust settled, Ethan reflected on the battle. 17 years of hiding had taught him patience, observation, and survival, but the battle had shown him something more. Humans were powerful not because of their weapons or speed, but because of their hearts and minds. The ability to think differently, take risks, and lead with courage made humans a force that could not be ignored. The victory also highlighted the importance of alliances. Humans alone could survive, but with allies like Lyria, their strengths multiplied. The combination of human unpredictability and alien technology created opportunities no enemy could anticipate. It was a lesson in unity, strategy, and mutual respect. Humans could rise to any challenge when guided by purpose and trust. Ethan walked through the colony, observing the people he had inspired. They moved with confidence, working together to repair damages, tend to the wounded, and strengthen defenses. Each action reflected the lessons they had learned. Observation, creativity, and courage could turn fear into power. Humans were capable of more than they often realized. Their strength lay not only in survival, but in the ability to act decisively, adapt to changing circumstances, and inspire others to do the same. Lyria joined him on the observation deck as the sun rose over the colony. "They have learned quickly," she said. "Human creativity and courage are remarkable. They adapt in ways that cannot be predicted. That is why I sought you, Ethan. You show them what they are capable of." Ethan nodded, watching the light reflect on the mountains and rivers. "They are strong," he said quietly. "They just needed guidance and a reason to believe in themselves. Humans have always survived, always adapted, and always risen against impossible odds. Now they see what that means firsthand." The battle had been won, but Ethan knew it was only the beginning. Larger threats awaited in the galaxy, more dangerous and organized than the enemy they had just faced. Yet he felt ready. Humans had proven that courage, creativity, and teamwork could overcome even advanced technology. With Lyria by his side and the colonies inspired, he believed that humanity could face anything. As they prepared to leave Valara Station and continue their journey, Ethan reflected on the events of the past days. Fear had been transformed into determination. Hesitation had been replaced by action. Humans had demonstrated that their greatest strength lay not in weapons alone, but in the ability to think, adapt, and lead when it mattered most. Ethan and Lyria's alliance had been tested and proven effective. Humans had risen to the challenge, showing bravery, intelligence, and resilience. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but humans had qualities that no enemy could anticipate. Courage, ingenuity, and the will to act when others hesitated were traits that set humans apart. The stars stretched endlessly before them as they prepared for the next mission. Ethan knew that battles would come again, each one more difficult than the last. But he also knew that humans were capable of overcoming any challenge. Their ability to adapt, inspire, and lead had been proven. Humanity's strength was not just survival, but the capacity to rise against impossible odds, to face fear, and to act with intelligence and courage. Ethan looked at Lyria, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Together they would guide humans through the challenges ahead. The battle had been won, but the war for the galaxy's future was far from over. Humans had proven their value, their strength, and their uniqueness. They were more than survivors. They were leaders, innovators, and warriors in their own right. The journey continued, but Ethan knew one truth clearly. Humanity had risen once again, demonstrating qualities that no enemy could replicate. Courage, intelligence, creativity, and unity would guide them forward. The galaxy was dangerous, but humans were ready. The galaxy was quiet after the battle, but Ethan knew this peace would not last forever. The enemy had been defeated in the last attack, but intelligence indicated larger forces were regrouping. Ethan and Lyria moved carefully, aware that the galaxy was full of danger, yet this calm gave humans a chance to reflect, recover, and grow stronger. Ethan walked through Valara Station, observing the colonists. People were repairing buildings, tending to crops, and helping one another. The scars of battle were visible, but so was the determination to rebuild. Humans had survived because they refused to give up, because they could think, adapt, and work together. He felt proud and inspired. Humans were capable of more than technology or weapons could achieve. Their greatest power lay in their courage, intelligence, and will to act when needed most. Lyria stood beside him, observing the scene. "Your people are remarkable," she said softly. "They learn quickly, adapt to challenges, and act bravely. I have traveled the galaxy, and few species demonstrate this combination of intelligence and courage." "Humans are special, Ethan." Ethan nodded. "They are, but they needed guidance and a reason to believe in themselves. That is what we gave them. Humans always rise when they are reminded of what they are capable of. We just have to show them the way." For the first time in years, Ethan felt at peace. He was no longer hiding, no longer running from the past, and no longer avoiding responsibility. He had helped humans recognize their own strengths, led them in battle, and proven that they could stand against overwhelming odds. Yet there was still work to do. Humanity was growing stronger, but the galaxy remained vast and dangerous. Lyria and Ethan met with the leaders of several colonies, coordinating defenses and sharing strategies. Humans listened, asked questions, and offered ideas. They had seen what was possible, and they were eager to contribute. Ethan realized that humans were not just survivors. They were thinkers, innovators, and leaders. Their willingness to act, to adapt, and to collaborate made them formidable allies. While coordinating with the colonies, Ethan noticed a pattern in the enemy's movements. Though defeated, they were not idle. They were reorganizing, searching for weaknesses, and preparing for a more coordinated attack. Ethan shared his analysis with Lyria and the leaders, devising a plan that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. This time, they would not wait to react. They would take the initiative, striking strategically to prevent future attacks. Preparation began immediately. Humans trained in advanced tactics combining improvisation, observation, and courage with technology provided by Lyria. Small groups practiced navigating terrain, creating traps, and coordinating attacks. Each colonist learned to think creatively, anticipate enemy moves, and act decisively. Ethan's leadership inspired confidence, while Lyria's support enhanced their abilities. Humans were learning quickly, demonstrating qualities that no enemy could easily counter. One evening, Ethan and Lyria stood on a cliff overlooking a valley where colonists were practicing maneuvers. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, and for a moment the galaxy felt calm. Lyria turned to Ethan. "Do you see it?" she asked. "Your people are ready. They are learning, adapting, and becoming stronger. You have helped them see what they are capable of." Ethan smiled. "They always had it," he said. "They just needed someone to show them that their creativity, courage, and determination mattered. Humans rise when they believe in themselves. That is why we survive and why we will continue to thrive." The calm did not last long. Reports came in of enemy ships approaching another colony, Aurelia Prime, a world rich in resources and strategic importance. The enemy intended to overwhelm the human population, but Ethan and Lyria were prepared. They coordinated defenses, set traps, and moved quickly to reinforce the colony. Humans worked with precision, improvising solutions to problems the enemy had not anticipated. The battle would be challenging, but they were ready. As the enemy fleet arrived, Ethan observed their formations and anticipated their strategies. Humans were positioned in clever ambushes, using terrain and technology to their advantage. Small teams moved unpredictably, creating confusion and forcing the enemy to adjust constantly. The combination of human ingenuity and Lyria's guidance created an unexpected strength. Humans were proving once again that they could rise against impossible odds. The first attack hit with intensity, but humans responded with precision and creativity. They moved through forests, caves, and narrow passages, using speed and observation to counter the enemy. Improvised devices and clever strategies disrupted the enemy's plans, and small victories accumulated. Lyria coordinated shields, communication, and sensor systems, enhancing the humans' effectiveness. Together, they created a force no enemy could easily predict or overcome. Ethan led a critical group to intercept the enemy's command ship. The plan was risky, but it relied on human adaptability. They used stealth, speed, and clever maneuvers to approach undetected. Humans moved with ingenuity, creating distractions and exploiting weaknesses. Lyria provided support from above, guiding the team and shielding them from detection. The combination of human creativity and advanced technology was unstoppable. Inside the command ship, Ethan confronted the enemy leader once again. The leader was confident, relying on superior technology and brute force. Ethan relied on observation, strategy, and human unpredictability. Every movement was calculated, every decision adaptive. The enemy leader underestimated the humans, assuming technology alone would ensure victory. Ethan's team moved in unexpected ways, neutralizing threats and seizing control. The leader was defeated, and the ship was disabled. Outside, the enemy fleet faltered without coordination. Humans moved swiftly, improvising and adapting to every situation. The enemy retreated, unable to counter the combined strength of human courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. The colony was safe, and humans celebrated their victory. They had proven that their greatest strengths were not weapons or speed, but the ability to think, adapt, and act decisively. Ethan walked through the colony, observing the people he had inspired. Their faces reflected determination, pride, and hope. Humans had risen against overwhelming odds, demonstrating resilience, creativity, and courage. Lyria joined him, her expression proud. "They have learned quickly," she said. "Your people are exceptional. They can rise to challenges that seem impossible. That is why I sought you, Ethan. You helped them see their true potential." Ethan nodded. "They always had it," he said. "We just needed to give them the chance to show it. Humans survive, adapt, and rise. That is who we are." With the enemy retreating, Ethan and Lyria returned to the colonies to oversee rebuilding and preparation for future threats. Humans had learned important lessons about teamwork, observation, and strategy. They had experienced fear, yet acted with courage. They had faced impossible odds, yet found solutions where none seemed possible. Humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, leaders, and protectors. Ethan reflected on the journey. 17 years of hiding had taught him patience and survival, but the battles had shown him something more. Humans' greatest power was not physical strength or technology, but courage, intelligence, creativity, and the will to act when it mattered most. The galaxy was dangerous, but humans could rise to any challenge. Lyria turned to Ethan, her eyes glowing softly. "You have changed the colonies," she said. "You have shown humans what they can achieve. Their courage, ingenuity, and determination will carry them through any challenge. You have proven that humanity is a force that cannot be ignored." Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "Humans always rise," he said. "They always find a way to survive, adapt, and lead. All we need is guidance and the courage to act. That is what we have done, and that is what will continue." As the stars stretched endlessly above them, Ethan realized that his life had come full circle. He had hidden for 17 years, afraid of responsibility and danger. Now he stood among humans who were ready to face the galaxy with courage, creativity, and determination. He had found purpose, leadership, and the opportunity to show that humans were special. The colonies were safe, at least for now. Humans had proven their strength, intelligence, and adaptability. The alliance between humans and Lyria's species had been tested and proven effective. Together, they could overcome challenges that no single group could face alone. Humans had risen, not just to survive, but to lead, innovate, and inspire. Ethan looked at Lyria and then at the colonists. "We have shown them what they can do," he said. "Now it is their time to lead, to inspire, and to rise. The galaxy is vast, but humans have proven that they can face it with courage, intelligence, and determination." Lyria nodded, her voice gentle. "And they will continue to rise, Ethan. Your guidance has shown them their potential, and they will carry it forward. Humanity is unique. Their strength is not in weapons, not in speed, not in technology alone, but in their courage, creativity, and will to act when it matters most." The sun rose over the colonies, casting light on humans who were rebuilding, learning, and preparing for the future. Ethan felt a sense of hope he had never known in 17 years of hiding. Humans were alive, strong, and ready to face whatever the galaxy held.